So good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Taylor Clem. I'm with you at IFAS Extension, Nassau County. And today we have Bobby with us. She is one of our Master Gardener volunteers, and she's going to be speaking about summer vegetable gardening. So I do appreciate everyone taking the time to join in online. There's a couple things that we have going on today that you'll notice is for online, feel free to put any of your questions in the chat box. I'll be helping moderate that throughout the program, as well as all of our programs. We're going to be recording it. And we'll post it up onto our online YouTube channel for any time that y'all want to review later. And then we'll follow up with some additional documents associated with today's program. So without further ado, I want to introduce Bobby and say thank you so much for joining us, and I'll let her take over. So thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. So today we're talking about summer vegetable gardening in North Florida. Okay, we'll use the clicker.
It's not plugged in.
Oh, so my air.
There we go. Now you should be good.
Okay. All right. So most of us, when we think about, oh, it didn't actually. There we go. Most of us, when we think about gardening as a summer vegetable garden in general, we tend to think about the crops that we would make a salad with. We tend to think about your tomatoes and cucumbers and the temperate crops that we would grow in any location other than Florida or the deep South. And these crops tend to like a more mild season that we definitely do not have in Florida. So our ideal seasons for growing vegetables are actually in fall and spring, not in summer. In fall and spring, our humidity drops, our temperatures drops. We can control a lot of the water more because we don't have the monsoon rains as much. So the question is, how can we actually grow a summer garden? One idea is we can flip what we do in the summer. We can think of doing winter work in the summer garden and not grow vegetables. Another option is change the way we think of approaching our summer garden. Maybe actually grow some different crops that we've never thought of that might actually not just tolerate it here, maybe even thrive, maybe just survive. So North Florida is a subtropic climate, and a subtropic climate is defined as having at least 8 months with a mean temperature above 50 degrees. And with that comes monsoon rains. We have frequent downpours in the hot season and then dry periods in the cold season. So with that, Taylor, is there a reason my notes are for the next slide and not the previous slide, not the current slide?
No, those should be the notes for this current slide. Oh, you got me?
Yeah. So we need to adjust our thinking to match these conditions and look at some other regions that are subtropic as well. And we might find some other crops looking at that we might not even recognize that deal with the heat and humidity that we actually have. So what are some of the challenges that we have in the summer garden? Obviously, we all know pests. Pests are the big one, and heat and humidity. All of these things thrive in abundance, and our vegetables do not. So plant selection makes all the difference in how successful our garden actually is. Fungus in particular is going to be out on the force. So some ideas of what we can do if we do decide to kind of flip our seasons and not grow things, and we decide we want to kind of do some winter work in the summer, that would be an opportunity to solarize our garden. Solarizing would give us an opportunity to manage our weeds and pests, kill off nematodes and disease, anything that has taken a stronghold in our garden over the last few seasons, which here is definitely a problem. We can plant cover crops, which have some major benefits. We can also take that opportunity to tidy, repair, expand our gardens, maybe build those raised beds you've wanted to, install some drip irrigations for the coming drier season. Just don't let yourself get some heat exhaustion.
You may go into it, but we had questions pop up online asking about what is solarization as well as cover crops.
We are going to get into both of those things
Perfect.
in the next slides. Yeah. So next slide, solarization. So solarization is the practice of basically trap the heat into the soil so that it gets so hot it kills off everything in the top several inches of the soil. So in order to do this, you need to have a very sunny area over your garden. It can't be shaded. You need to use, you need to clear out all of the existing weeds. It needs to be bare dirt. You want to till it up so that it's nice and fluffy and easily penetrated. And then you got to use clear plastic. It can't be a foggy white plastic or definitely not a black plastic. It has to be clear so the sun can actually penetrate. And then ideally you'll want to do it a day after it's rained or you've irrigated, but you don't want it to be, you know, muddy, not after a monsoon. And then when you cover it with the plastic, you're going to want to bury the edges of it to seal in the heat. You don't want any of that heat to escape. And then you're going to leave it there for at least 6 weeks. Longer is okay or even better, because sometimes there's overcast days, things that can definitely impact the success of it. So there are some drawbacks as well. The temperatures are not only hot enough to kill the pests, bacteria, fungus, all the baddies living in your dirt, but they're also high enough they will kill off the good as well. But luckily, the good microorganisms are, they repopulate quickly, and it's easy to replenish these by adding things like compost, worm castings, those type of things back in, things that you would probably add in at the start of a new season anyway. But even if you don't, they will recolonize quickly. A couple more drawbacks is if you do get overcast summer days, that will reduce the efficacy of it. So you'll definitely want to extend the period beyond 6 weeks in that case. If you get holes, you'll definitely want to seal those up, because any opportunity for heat to escape is going to diminish the success of it. There are some IFAS documents on this if you want some more information. A couple names of documents are the Introduction to Solarization and Solarization for Pest Management. But you can just go to IFAS and type in solarization and you will get several results. Yeah.
Is it less successful on raised beds? I'm just curious because the raised beds don't have the ground insulation. So are there different procedures for raised beds? Do you need to leave it on there longer?
I'm not sure about that, but I do know in general, raised beds tend to heat up faster than in the ground beds because of the ambient heat around them. So I would think that that would be more successful.
Can you restate the question? So.
Yeah, there was a question of if this is at all different with raised beds than ground beds. And I don't believe that's the case. Jackie?
We use the raised beds at the Junior Master Gardener with the Boys and Girls Club,
Mhm.
and it's very successful. If
Oh,
you do
okay.
it right, and make sure they know clear plastic only.
Yeah, definitely clear plastic. So Jackie was saying that they do it in some raised beds at Junior Boys and Girls Club. Is that it? And it's very successful. Yeah, I mean, raised beds, that is one of the benefits of raised beds too, is they do tend to heat up in general faster than the ground. So yeah. Okay. Cover crops. So cover crops are referred to as living mulch or green manure. And basically they are a crop that you plant and you let it grow and cover the surface of the soil. And then you come back, you chop it down, you let it decompose. So there are some benefits of it. Depending on which crop you choose to grow, some of them will increase the nitrogen and fertility in the soil. All of them will offer weed control, and they'll protect the soil from things like erosion and seeds taking hold. Some of them are particularly useful for controlling nematodes, and all of them will help keep the food web in the soil going. So cover crops are another really good option for your summer garden if you're not going to be growing vegetables. So if you do choose to grow cover crops, what you do is you plant them and then you let them grow to the point of when they're just about maturity, not at the point of setting seed. So you go until they begin to flower, until about 25% of it has flowered, but none of it has set any seed. And then you chop it down. Once you chop it down, you have a couple options. You can chop and drop, let it sit on the surface and decompose. That'll also act as a mulch if you do it that way. Or you can till it into the soil and let it decompose in the soil. Or you can take it out and chuck it in your compost bin. So if you do want more information on cover crops, you can go to IFAS and type in cover crops. I didn't list any specific IFAS documents here because they have a number of them where they will list based on your specific goals. So if you want to plant a cover crop geared towards increasing your nitrogen, they have tables of crops and information geared towards that if you're looking to reduce nematodes. So I would recommend going to IFAS and just type in cover crops, and you'll find a document that is good for that. Yeah.
We did have one question I responded to already on here about, nematode control and solarization.
Mm-hmm.
And I did mention online for you all to know that sun hemp is a great cover crop for nematode control when you're using a green manure or a top dress like a compost like this.
That is one in particular.
Yeah, because it'll help
Yes.
push the nematodes aren't attracted to it, so they'll
Yeah.
So, sun hemp.
Yeah.
It's a great summer cover crop. Yeah.
There are a few of them that is one definitely at the top, and then there were a few. If you look on IFAS, they have a document that lists like 5. I think there were like 5 of them.
And I have a
in
list.
there.
I have a document that I'll send out that has a cool season and warm season cover crop varieties that do well in North Florida.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So Taylor's saying that he sun hemp. Oh, you already put it in chat.
No.
Oh, okay.
So the document.
Oh, okay, yes. Taylor's gonna send out a document that lists warm season and cold season cover crops for our area. So if you are going to garden in the summer, you don't want to do winter work, you're determined to grow your vegetable garden. Some things to consider are the length of the growing season. Our growing season is only 3 months long, and our prime seasons are really spring and fall. So how long is it going to take for the maturity of the plants you want to grow? Are they going to overlap those seasons? What kind of space do you have available in your garden, and are you willing to pull out your existing plants to make room for those summer crops? These are things that you have to kind of think about to plan out what you actually want to do with the space you have available. Some more things are how you actually want to design your gardens. Do you want to have raised beds? Raised beds are awesome, especially for the summer gardens, because you can control the water a little bit more. Things aren't getting bogged down with our monsoons. If you do choose to grow in containers, you need to absolutely make sure that you have adequate drainage in them, because blight is a serious problem as you get throughout our late season. Blight in particular can be a major problem if you don't have adequate drainage. You can definitely be more prone to problems like that. Nutrients you need to be careful with your fertilization, because nutrients are much more prone to leaching throughout that season. And your vegetables are really heavy feeders in general. We ask a lot of them. We ask them to grow an entire lifespan, put out a lot of fruit in a very short period of time. So they require a lot of food in order to do that. And with a lot of rain, a lot of that's getting flushed through the soil. And another important element is you got to mulch. The sun, as much rain as we get, the sun will dry out of those top few inches faster than you can keep up with. And vegetables often do have shallow roots because they have such a short lifespan. So mulching is definitely going to be your friend to suppress the weeds, prevent the erosion, build up the soil, and maintain that moisture, particularly in your raised beds for your plants. So if you want to grow veggies, what are some of the veggies we can grow? So we're going to go through a list of crops. Some of them are going to thrive. Some of them are just going to survive. Some of them are going to survive for part of the season, might die off partway through the season. And most of this is through trial and error. Just, people growing things and having success. But a lot of these are things that you've probably never heard of because they come from other subtropical regions. So the first one, everybody wants to grow their tomatoes. And there are some tomatoes that we can indeed grow in the summer here. The first kind of category is cherry tomatoes. You're going to have the most success with cherry tomatoes. You can plant them in the spring or summer, and the major difference with cherry tomatoes is they will continue to set fruit above 85 degrees, whereas most tomatoes won't. There are some full-size tomatoes that will, but most of them won't. They, like all tomatoes, they like full sun. However, they will tolerate some shade, especially here. Our version of full sun is intense. So they will handle some filtered from our filtered sun. You're going to want to cage them, fertilize them heavily, and you need to pick their fruit as soon as it's ripe. Heavy rains will lead to split fruit very quickly, especially on the cherry tomatoes. One heavy rain can split them in a day. Some really good varieties for here are the Sweet 100s, the grape tomatoes, Tiny Toms, Sun Golds, BHN, 624s, Evergrades, Sweet Millions. The Everglades in particular are kind of our non-natives, natives, so to speak. They're actually a different species of tomato and kind of referred to as a currant tomato. And they're actually tolerant of salt. So if you live in a salty location, they're tolerant of salt winds and brackish waters. So like if you live out on the island, they could be a good option for you. If you want full-size tomatoes, there are some heat-resistant full-size tomatoes that will also set fruit over 85 degrees. We have the Heat Miser, Solar Set, Solar Flare, Florida 91, Better Boy, Celebrity, and Amelia. There are some heirlooms also. I'm partial to the heirlooms, so I'm happy there are a few here, particularly the Cherokee Purple, Green Zebra, Mortgage Lifters, and Rutgers. Again, fertilize, water, and you've got to be out scouting for insects very often with tomatoes. Insects, zero in on them very quickly. Crop that thrives here is peppers. Again, we're looking at more traditional crops now. Peppers, you can plant in spring or summer. They are very productive. You plant in sun, they actually can handle, you know, some dry spells. Again, fertilizing is really important. And we have some varieties listed here, some hots and sweets. I grow new varieties every year, and I'm yet to find a pepper that has not grown here. But pretty much everything I've stuck in the ground has absolutely thrived and produced prolifically. So, the ones on the screen here, the datil is I believe, is that one native? I believe.
No, it's not native.
Oh,
It has a really cool story.
Oh, okay. It has a
Northeast
cool
Florida.
story from
Yeah.
Northeast Florida. I
Yeah.
thought I read somewhere it was from like St. Augustine or something.
That's where it's most popular.
Okay.
So the story of datil peppers is really cool because it's kind of like emerged in popularity
Okay.
in St. Augustine, but how it got here and why. So it's special to the culture and around St. Augustine.
Okay. Kind of like the Seminole pumpkin Everglades. People say they're native, but they're not actually. Okay. Okay. So the datil is not native, but all of these on the screen, the datil, the habanero, jalapeno, ghost, all the chilies. We've gone the bells, cubanellas, bananas, ashbarkies, all the Italian ones. Yes, all of these thrive in the summer here. There are some greens that you can grow here that are good spinach replacements. There's New Zealand spinach. That one is kind of like a rambling vine that will just spread out across the ground. I grow that one and I really like that one. There's Okinawa, Malabar, Ethiopian kale. And all of these, you know, you can they don't require very much fertilizer, and you just harvest up to a third at a time. Asian greens will grow well. So we've got the mustard greens, Yucchina, Savoy, Tatsoi. They're typically grown in fall and spring, but they'll also grow in the summer here. So another one is leaf amaranth. So you'd eat the young shoots and it'll reseed itself and become weedy. It is susceptible to fungus and caterpillars. And it does thrive in hot and humid regions, so it does well here. Eggplant is another one that does really well here. It loves the sun, it loves the heat, just like the peppers and tomatoes. Water it well, fertilize every 2 or 3 weeks, check for pests, all that same stuff. Okra. Okra is one that everyone thinks of when south. You can plant it all summer long, from spring through summer. It loves the blazing sun, and you can direct sow it. You want to give each plant plenty of space and water it well. And you need to make sure that you harvest the pods very often and with clippers. If you let it go too long, not only will the pods become pretty much inedible, they kind of turn to wood, it'll stop producing. So it's in the hibiscus family. It's related to the hibiscus plants that we know for their flowers. And some good varieties here are the Alabama Red, Baby Bubba, Clemson, Spineless, Ever Tender, and Little Lucy. And now we're getting into a couple that some people might not be familiar with. We have and I'm probably going to butcher this pronunciation, Teote. This one is native to southern Mexico and Guatemala. It is a vigorous vine. And you actually can start it by planting the fruit, and it's a perennial once you have it. It's a very mild fruit that you use like a squash. So, which is interesting because a lot of squash doesn't particularly thrive here. But this one is good because it is a perennial. You can cook it like a squash. It's mild, absorbs the flavors of whatever you're cooking it with, and you can eat the young shoots as vegetable themselves. Next, we have sweet potatoes, and I don't know how to pronounce boniato. Boniato. Taylor's got these. Boniato. So slips or sweet potatoes, we plant a little different than regular potatoes. We plant slips, which are the green plantlets that grow off of them when you let them sit in your pantry too long. So you plant those in mounds in the ground once they're nice and healthy looking, and you leave them there for a long time. You can actually eat the greens as they're growing. They're nice and tender leaves. And so it's kind of a dual purpose crop as well. So you can eat the leaves as the tubers are growing under the ground. They are susceptible to whitefly later in the summer. You're going to need to leave them there for a really long time. So you plant them early in the summer, and then you're going to harvest them sometime in the fall.
Yeah, like
late summer, early fall.
Plant with patience.
Yes. You just look at the beautiful foliage and eat it sometimes. It's when you grow sweet potatoes, one important thing is they have to be cured in order for them to actually become sweet potatoes. So this is something that if you choose to grow them, you'll probably look into, but it is something to note that they do require curing to generate the sugars that actually make them sweet. And that requires being kept in a dark place over 85 degrees with a high humidity for a couple weeks. It is a good idea to start with certified slips that you can order to make sure that they are free of weevils and nematodes that they're prone to, versus just starting with your own, you don't know, kind of, if you're starting with infected plants at that point. Another option, if you like your green beans tend to not really thrive here, but yard-long beans do. There are several different varieties. They come from Southern Asia. They come in greens, reds, purples, and they're basically like a green bean. The interesting thing is they all turn out green when you cook them, regardless of the color they start out on the plant. They'll grow 1 to 3 feet long, depending on how long you leave them on the plant. And they grow just like a pole bean. They're very prolific. They are prone to aphids, but it's really easy to get the aphids off. Excuse me. It's really easy to get the aphids off. You can just slide them off with your fingers or blast them off with a hose. I find it to be one of the easiest plants to get aphids off of, actually, because they tend to just go for the stems. Another one is winged beans. I had never heard of this one, but it apparently thrives in hot, humid weather, is a vigorous vine, and you can eat the beans, eat the tender beans, dry the beans, and apparently eat the root, which is pretty cool. It is susceptible to some fungus, but it has no major pest issues. Another one is the adzuki bean. That is grown to be a dry bean. It's really tolerant to insects, but it does compete poorly with weeds. So if you want to grow a dried bean, that is a good one to go with. Lima beans. Lima beans are really good grower in the South. They take full sun and grow to maturity relatively quickly. They need, sorry, lost my place there. They will produce all summer long. They're not heavy feeders. Most beans don't seem to be super heavy feeders. So these produce really well in the summer without much maintenance at all. Roselle is another one that is related to the hibiscus. And it is referred to as Florida cranberry. It is a plant where you harvest the callus of the flowers. So you plant it and you get a big plant, and then when it starts to flower, you harvest the calluses. It'll grow 6 to 7 feet tall. And then in about the fall, you harvest the calluses and you can make anything you would make with cranberries out of it. You can make teas, chutneys, jams. It has a very similar flavor to cranberry. Just add your sugar and make something with it. So that is one that does really well here. It's a little known, but once you discover it, people seem to really like that one. Cassava is another one that does well here. You can buy tubers and or bury a 10-inch section of a stem to get that growing. It'll grow 12 plus feet. And then you harvest it for the tuber. You want to plant it in well-drained soil. It's a light feeder, needs sun, and you harvest it just for the tuber and use it like any other root vegetable. So for our squash, about the only ones that really thrive in the summer here, we have the calabaza and the Seminole pumpkins. They are very heat tolerant and have exceptional insect and disease tolerance. You'd plant them in the summer for a fall harvest, and both of them, they have similar timing. I will say I have had nematode problems with the Seminole. That's just my experience in a bed full of many different squash. They all went to the Seminole. But they are known for being very prolific here. They love our environment and produce out of control. So that is a good one to plant here if you want your squash.
I know a lot of people will plant it
Mhm.
and, because we can't really grow pumpkins and we can't.
Yeah,
You know, but Seminole squash, yeah, the gift that keeps on giving.
yeah,
Even if you throw it in your compost bin, it'll come back.
yeah,
With vengeance. So it's like one of those plants, like if you plant it once, it'll always come back. as long
Yeah.
as there's a seed stock there, but, it's great because when you can harvest it, like around like October, November time, you know, or late season, people will turn them into like our version of like pumpkin pie. And stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's a great plant that you can cook with. You just can't carve with it very well. So you do everything else.
Oh.
So it's a great like sort of variety version of a pumpkin.
Yeah,
Some pumpkins grow well, but they just don't like our heat. So the timing is late summer for typical pumpkins, because for like a late season harvest. But
Okay.
some pumpkins are great for, but they just keep popping up. Whether you want to or not.
well, I'm gonna try them again, but I think I'm gonna solarize my dirt first, because I swear every nematode in the whole thing went straight forth.
Haley Gibson is the best pumpkin pie she's ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. I keep hearing they're great, so. Okay, so, hot weather herbs. So hot weather herbs, we've got all of our traditional ones, the oregano, rosemary, thyme, mints. Basil doesn't do so well here. It is kind of prone to some diseases. You'll get the black spot on it. You'll get some fungus problems on it once it really gets hot and humid in it, around here. But there are some more interesting things you can grow here. There's one called culantro, which is kind of similar to cilantro. It's a heat-loving version of cilantro, because cilantro is a cold season herb kind of. It apparently has a stronger but similar flavor to cilantro. There's ginger, which will grow in the shade, and turmeric, which is very similar to ginger. It will also grow in the shade. So those are the crops that will really will grow in the summer here. Some thrive, some grow. So quickly, just talking about our soil. Most soils here are very sandy. And we know the ideal pH is 6.5, so it's always a good idea to start with a soil test here. I know there's a lot of alkaline soils in this region, and adding compost and manure to increase the fertility of our soil, especially when you're trying to grow vegetables. Again, a lot of vegetables, we're asking a lot of them, so giving them the best that we can is a good idea. Seeds or transplants. It's something to consider in how you're planning on starting your garden. Seeds give you a good selection and they're inexpensive. However, once you get a seed catalog, that can quickly change when you start seeing all the options. But there are so many options if you do decide to go to start seeds. Transplants, they give you an instant garden, but they are expensive, and your selection is limited to what they have in the store. And you do have to be careful. I have noticed selections in stores sometimes don't always match up with the region that you're purchasing in. So that's something to be aware of. Watering the garden, something that you have to think about. The garden will need 1 to 2 inches of water a week. You want to make sure you're watering in the morning and not splashing on the leaves. So using drip irrigation is always going to be the best thing. And mulching is, I say mulch, mulch, mulch. Mulching is always going to be very beneficial, both to keep that moisture from evaporating every afternoon, and to keep the water off of the plants. Disease is so much more prevalent during the summer and will be even more so if you don't follow these guidelines. And if your plants wilt excessively in the afternoon, every afternoon, like stressed plants are more susceptible to pests and disease. So, you know, anything we can do to minimize that stress is going to help, you know, manage their strength to combat those things. Yeah.
She was hoping for a little explanation of mulch.
Oh, mulch is something that we put on the surface of the soil to protect the soil from evaporation of water, weeds. It's a barrier between the soil and the elements. Yeah. So fertilizing the garden. We want to make sure we fertilize the garden before we plant. We can do this, just fertilize the whole area. And then we're going to want to do additional fertilizing every 3 weeks throughout the growing season. Just make sure that we keep up on that. One thing to keep in mind, if you do use an organic fertilizer, like the one shown in the picture there, it does take a few weeks for the microbes in the soil to break those down. So you either want to make sure you get that in the soil a few weeks ahead of planting, or make sure that you are supplementing it with a liquid fertilizer for the first several weeks until that has a chance to get going. So if you do it at the same time, just make sure you're getting out there and doing your spray or fertilizer, so they're not just starving. Starving as they wait for those microbes to do their job. Tomatoes and peppers in particular are really prone to blossom end rot. So we need to make sure that they are getting a good amount of calcium. If you are using organic methods, bone meal is a really good way of getting that to them, or a pulverized eggshell. So care in the garden in the summer, the pretty much big things you need to think about are scouting for insects, keeping an eye out for disease, protecting from invaders, harvest the crops, harvest the bulk of the crops, and then remove the plant. You don't want to leave a plant there. As soon as it's put out, you know, the bulk of what it's going to, get the plant out of there. And don't let an area go to weed. Once you let weeds take hold, and then they start putting their seeds in, you're going to be battling that for a long time. And never let produce rot. Never let produce fall on the ground. Never leave produce rotting on the plant. Don't let that tomato slip by you. Try not to let that tomato slip by you, because rotting produce attracts more pests. So that's not a good idea. If you need to, you know, if your plants start to get crowded throughout the season, I have to do this sometimes. I got things close together, go in and start pruning things to improve that airflow, rather than let, you know, rather than let the moisture and humidity get trapped in there and start creating problems. And any soil that's not in use needs to be protected. So quickly talking about pests, we've got several of them right there. Those are the guys, those are major guys that we gotta scout for. Man, those leaf-footed bugs and army worms are my major enemies. So strategies for making it through the summer. Just to quickly recap, water early in the morning, but don't get the leaves wet. Weed often. We can control the pests with botanical sprays, but you don't want to do it in the heat of the day. Use disease-resistant varieties of plants if possible. Use generous spacing to increase airflow. Fertilize regularly. You want to plant lots of pollinator plants to keep the bees and beneficial insects there. Plant trap crops. We'll talk about those in a second. And it's a good idea to practice crop rotation. Really quickly, for pest control, some good options. I mentioned botanical sprays, things like neem oils, just shooting with a hose, using your fingers, BT for the caterpillars or pyrethrum. Those are good options for managing pretty much all of your pests without going to extreme chemicals. But it is important to do those not in the afternoon of the day. You might scorch your plants. And then the crop rotation, some pests and disease target specific plants. So if you plant that same crop in the same spot over and over again, it'll get comfy there and you'll get an abundance of that disease or that pest in that spot. Trap crops are plants that you grow that are more attractive to insects for food and egg laying. So the harmful insects will be lured away from your vegetables because they want to go over there. So it's a good idea to plant your trap crops a few weeks ahead of the crops you're trying to protect. Some examples of this are you can plant a combination of sorghum and sunflowers will lure leaf-footed bugs away from tomatoes. Blue Hubbard squash will lure cucumber beetles, squash bugs, and squash vine borers. Trap crops are also a good tool for drawing in pollinators that are natural predators to pests, such as parasitic wasps and hoverflies. So it's good for luring away the bad and luring in the predators to bad guys. And last, I just want to mention, if you are determined to grow more traditional summer crops, you can experiment with shade cloth. If you use shade cloth, you can actually extend a lot of what many of us think of as summer crops, but here is more spring and fall crops. If you utilize shade cloth over your garden, you can actually extend that spring into summer, and some of these crops will actually grow through the summer. So you can either, and I've done both of these methods, you can either use the black shade cloth of between 30 and 45% and put that up over your whole area. Or you can actually use row cover fabric and just drape that over your plants. With the shade cloth, you can actually stake it up over the whole area. With the row cover fabric, you can just drop it on your plants. One benefit of the row cover fabric is it actually reflects the heat out as well. So it actually doesn't just create shade, it actually will reduce the temperature a bit. And if you can seal the edges, you can actually block some insects as well. So you're getting kind of a double whammy there with that one. You can kind of act like an insect barrier. So if you do that, you can actually experiment with growing some of your, cucumbers, maybe some of your other squashes and melons and things that would normally kind of struggle with the summer heat. So that wraps up my slideshow. Do we have any questions?
We've had a lot of questions coming
Oh.
through on here, so I've been trying to.
You've
keep
been
up.
answering?
As in these mornings, we've had a lot of great questions, so, yeah, is there any other questions? And I can review the online questions with everybody here in a few minutes, but we can. Great presentation.
Awesome. I have one. So you talked about planting things that attract pollinators and also using like neem oil and things like that. So my question is, how do you get the most benefit of using something like that when it's necessary without harming the pollinators? Because the pollinators are attracted to the plants, you know, all the plants that are blooming, regardless of whether or not they're vegetable or having insect issues. So how do you balance that? Do you, I don't use any insecticide because I'm like, I'm gonna kill my monarch butterflies and I'm attracting to the backyard when I spread it.
Can you restate that question?
Oh, well,
We
Kelly's,
had a similar one on.
yeah, Kelly's asking how you manage, like you have your pollinator plants drawing in your pollinators, but then you have some pests that you need to treat with, like your neem oil. How do you do that without killing off your pollinators as well? Did I restate that correctly?
Yeah. How do you-
Okay. How do you
Is
do
there
that
a better
without?
time to use it than others or?
Do you need me to answer that one? Because I can answer that one.
Yeah, can you
Yeah,
answer
okay.
that one?
I'll come answer that one. So, I mean, that's a great question. We get that question all the time. So, we did have the question online also that, or as a statement, it's just like neem oil and like other horticultural oils, horticultural soaps, even though they're not like your typical like pyrethroids or other insecticides or pesticides, they can still impact non-target species. So the things you don't want to kill. So there's a couple strategies that we can do. So for like neem oil or anything like that, be very specific in your targeted application. Some of the big issues is just blanket applications on plant material. That's not good. Spot treatment only. So if you have aphids or some other insect you're trying to control, spray only where they're active. And luckily, a lot of times with like neem oils or soaps, they break down very quickly and the residual doesn't last very long. But then also we think about foraging. So there are prime times of the day where our pollinators are foraging. And when you actually look at the labels, they'll actually tell you avoid applying this product while insects are foraging. So like your bees, your butterflies, etc. Which is during the day.
Yeah.
So usually if you follow the temperature restrictions on a lot of those applications, we just say don't apply when temperatures are above 84 degrees and we get there at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So as long as you're applying in the morning and you're applying in that lower temperatures in the mornings or in the late evening when foraging has ceased pretty much, you're gonna minimize the impacts to the beneficials. So timing is very critical. So really think about spot treatment only, as well as just the timing of the application. Because yeah, you are right. It's like neem oil is great. Horticultural oils, horticultural soaps are wonderful, but they're still insecticides.
Yeah.
So you still need to make sure that you're very aware of how you're using them. You know, so treat them no different than it is a pyrethroid. Or I don't want to say pyrethroid, but like any other type of pesticide, but just treat it in a safe manner and follow the restrictions. The label is the law. You should be okay. But foraging and timing is going to be the biggest thing, of just spot treatment only. Because neem oil, horticultural oils, horticulture soaps, they don't work unless you get direct contact, really. So it's going to be important to it's not going to be worth it to spray other parts of the plant, because that's when you can hit non-target species. Focus on where those targeted species are.
Is it
So-
okay to do those in the evening? Like you don't water your plants in the evening because you don't want to breed fungus on them.
Yeah,
Is it
it's-
okay to like spray that in the evening?
Yeah, it should be totally fine to spray out in the evening, because when you're putting down those sprays, I wouldn't be too concerned about moisture levels leading to a fungal pathogen, because just wet over evening, because it's just a small amount. So that's a great question. So but that also bring, depending on how you're irrigating or watering, if it's drip, it's not much of a concern. But also sorry, if it's drip, it's not too much of a concern, but you don't want to like put down a pesticide. And then if you have like a spray head or something like that, that's watering your vegetable garden, don't have it turn on right afterwards, because that it almost defeats the purpose and it's a waste. And as well as with the mulch, that just brought up a thought. With the mulch, it's a great idea for gardens, but for some of our younger plants, you need to be very careful. You don't want the mulch right up on the plant base, because it could rot the base of the plant. You can create an environment that creates a fungus. So just making sure like the mulch can be very beneficial, but just be very strategic in how you're using it. So there you go.
Yes. Always important with mulch. Keep it away from the stems.
Yeah. In your vegetable
And
garden
if-
or your ornament.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
those are
The
right.
baby vegetables are baby plants are very susceptible
Yeah.
to that.
Mhm.
Stems are toothpicks. Any other questions?
Great job.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Good job.
Thanks, Bobby. All right. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We will follow up with some of the information and the recording of the program. So I do appreciate everyone joining us online and everybody that's here in person. So you all, I can't put my mouse. You all have a wonderful day, weekend coming up. It's hot. Hopefully we get some rain. We need it. So anyways, y'all take care and have a great day. Thank you all so much.